being an outsider was very much my reality. I am a first-generation immigrant of Nigerian parents, so I grew up with an elderly, a pensioner, who was a white woman who had a very different lived experience from mine. I think that knowing your worth starts internally. Don't attach your purpose and your skills to a vehicle. So many people go into interviews like,
with a humility,
please, Ola, give me a job. You're not gate crashing. I invited you. What's the maximum of income that you imagine yourself ever earning? You can say these scriptures, but if you're not actually investing in refining, in developing, then don't complain when your income level doesn't rise.
Hello, I'm Brenda Emmanus, and welcome to the Faith and Finance podcast brought to you by the Pentecostal Community Bank, where we explore how faith shapes the way we think about money, growth, responsibility, and impact. On this podcast, we don't just talk about numbers. We talk about mindset, responsibility, stewardship, and the deeper beliefs that influence how we invest, grow, and lead. I'm so delighted to say that our guest this time is Arit Eminue. This extraordinary woman is a founder, consultant, and transformational leader whose work marries purpose, growth, and intentional living. Arit has spent years helping individuals and organizations confront limiting beliefs, particularly around money, value, and personal development. In this conversation, we'll explore scarcity versus stewardship, why we so often invest more readily in material things than in ourselves, and how faith reshapes the way we approach growth, generosity, and surrender. Arit, welcome to Faith and Finance. It's so great to have you here.
It's great to be here, Brenda.
Now, you're a woman who juggles many balls. Put your career in perspective for us.
Yeah, I've always been somebody who's had her fingers in many pies, but there's a running thread through all of the work that I have done thus far, and that has been really helping people realize their potential, working in businesses that value their people. So that started at the beginning of my career. I spent the early part working in film and TV, and as a producer, and then moved behind into more of the training and the development space and access space. And that was born primarily because I was a single mom and I needed some money. And I started to develop an internship program that helped people from racially and ethnically diverse communities get their first job in the film industry. And that was because I had the benefit of a really good film education, and I studied at the National Film and TV School, which is one of the leading film schools in Europe. And coming out of that school, it gave me what I used to refer to back then as like the fairy dust effect. So because I had been to a particular school, it meant that people would meet me more readily than they would have done people who hadn't been to that school, as it were. And I thought when I was setting up and creating opportunities for people that I wanted them to have the same fairy dust effect, so that because they had worked at whatever organization we were supporting at the time, we were partnering with at the time, it would open up doors post their internship and help them get work in the industry. And so that is how I essentially started this journey of really working much more on the development of people and talent. And I ran a business called DiVA Apprenticeships. And I always used to say it's by name and not by nature, unless you owed me money.
I love that.
And that was very much kind of built on what I had done working for an organization on creating access to opportunities. And it was really about, at that time, challenging perception from the industry around what apprenticeship talent looked like. So because it was such a graduate heavy industry and it was very nepotistic, all about who you know and where you went to school and all of that. I wanted anyone that came through DiVA to want to be able to challenge their thinking that, oh wow, yes, of course I can, go and work at an organization like the BBC or Universal Music or Warner Brothers, whoever, that I'm worth as much and have as much value as anybody else in that organization, right? But also to start to challenge those organizations and their thinking about what talent look like. So, you don't have to have gone to university to have a successful career, right? So it was about that challenge, opening mindsets, switching mindsets, creating opportunities. And I ran DiVA for about 15 years and then exited the business in 2020. that was when I was like at the end, I'd merged the apprenticeship business with another organization, but it takes a while when you're running a business to untangle yourself from that
Of
business.
course, it's
So it's
personal,
probably,
isn't it?
yeah, as well. And so it was probably around December 2022 where I was kind of, okay, it's done. And alongside that, I set up a consultancy company called All Things People and Talent. So where DiVA was very much about helping people get work. Now I work with leaders and managers to help them create those kind of organizations where people can realize their full potential. So I don't want people in your business, and I didn't want people in my business who just rocked up and did a job because they got paid. It's my job to create an environment where they can,
There's passion.
there's passion where we're all rowing in the same direction and you're playing to your strengths and the environment is conducive to that. So that's the work that I do with leaders. But again, that starts from who you are as an individual has a huge impact on how you show up as a leader. So, and I learned that so much myself as an entrepreneur that it really shows you yourself, really reveals your character, reveals your traumas, and you need to check them so you're not making your past problems, somebody else's present problem, if you want, your past pain rather, today's
somebody else's problem.
So that's the work that I do right now.
I can see how that fuels you wholeheartedly. Now, we're both from the creative industries, and so we share the mutual love of stories and storytelling. And I'm a real firm believer that everybody's story has a lesson for us that we can draw out of. So I wondered about your own story, your early story. What about that motivated you to find yourself in the creative industry, for example, and how that's driven you ever since?
So from early, as in like way back.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Your
so
roots.
We're going all the way back.
The roots that built this gorgeous tree.
So I am first generation immigrant of Nigerian parents. So my dad came over here in the late 60s and he docked in Liverpool after coming off the board a ship called the Tramel. And he made his way up to Newcastle, hence Geordie Lil, somewhere here on my voice. So I grew up in Newcastle I split my time between my parents' home. My dad was quite traditional, so he believed that we needed a nanny in the house. So we would spend time with our nanny, who we went on to call Nana. And she lived in a different part of Newcastle, Wallsend, which is an old mining town, real working class community. And so when my parents' relationship broke up, my brother and I, we moved in with our nana, and my mum moved to London. And so that was a very different experience. So I grew up in a space where we were only ever the black family, the only one black family, and never went to a school where I saw other people of colour. So that was very much, being an outsider was very much my reality. And also not growing up in a home where where your parents are there. So I grew up with an elderly, a pensioner, who was a white woman who had a very different lived experience from mine. So in that sense, I've always been isolated and never really fit in. So when I think about the work that I do right now, I can relate to feeling like you're outside, but I also think there's power in being outside. So when I moved to London in my teens, because I was like, I love the community aspect of working in the Northeast. Of growing up in the Northeast, because Northerners are much more friendlier than Southerners. We are,
even as a Londoner, I have to admit.
We are a friendlier bunch. It's also very small. And so on the plus side, everyone knows everyone's business, and you are taken care of because of that. But on the downside, everyone knows everybody's business.
You can't hide anything.
You can't hide anything. And there's a tradition which, if you are looking for predictability, that will work for you. And back then it was, you went to, you finished your school, you got a job, and you got married, you had a house, you had kids, and everything was all nice and packaged. But the jobs were limited. It was admin jobs, or at least limited for us in terms of the school that we went to. But in our house, my mum's house, in her traditional Nigerian form, you were the head and not the tail, above and not beneath. You were meant to be first class. So that was the belief system that I grew around. And so I knew I wanted more. And so I came to London to be with my mom, but also to be in a dynamic where there were more people that were like me. But when I got here, I didn't fit in either with the Nigerian community because you're too white, with Black British people in general because my references were different, my creative references, the things that I liked were very different, were not Black enough. So I found, oh wow, okay, so I'm an outsider again in my own community. So I really struggled to grapple with that, if I'm honest, and so I don't belong up there, and I don't belong down here by what you all are saying. Like, I don't fit in. And so I think for me, I really started to find my identity in the word, because it's not subject to any of anybody else's prejudices, stereotypes. It's really about the root of who I am. But I think from that, what it does, it has given me the ability to navigate spaces in a way that maybe others haven't, because I'm comfortable in who I am as an individual, and my validation is internal, it's not external, because I learned early on that external validation is dependent on the person.
Before you, I asked you how you put that into practice. Let me throw a proverb at you. Proverb 4:23 tells us, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. So how would you say your internal beliefs have shaped your external working practice and life practice?
Yeah, I would say that scripture in its essence has been really, I guess it reinforces what I said, right? Is because I learned early on that I did not fit in, and I thought that was a bad thing. But I think from spending time in the word, it's that you're not meant to fit in. We are all meant to be unique, and that actually, and that's all right. But you do have to guard your heart, because I found myself in those early days a bit like a chameleon, trying to take on the identity of, oh, okay, so that's what it means to be this. Okay, so let me be this. And then I'd feel like, well, that doesn't feel like me. It's a bit like David in the Bible, where he was going out to fight Goliath, and he put on all of the armor and went out, and he was like, this doesn't feel comfortable to him. All he needed was a sling and his 5 stones. That was it, because that's what he was used to. So I think for me, it was very much about, actually, none of what you're asking me to put on to match your idea of what it means in that sense to be a Black woman actually works for me. So let me go back to, and that wasn't, and I say that now, like having, many, many years down the line, but at the time it wasn't like, oh, yes, of course, I'm going to go into the word and come up with this spiritual enlightenment. It wasn't that at all. It was just a yearning. It was an experience that actually I don't fit in, and I don't like the fact that I don't fit in. And I think when you start crying out, and then it wasn't necessarily, I didn't have the language. I wasn't using the language, I'm crying out to God. I was just crying out like, I don't like the fact that I can't be who they want me to be. And so that crying, God responds to the voice of the child. And so then starts to bring you in to alignment with people, with resources that allow you to start that journey. I think it's in Proverbs 25 too, where he says that it's a glory of God to conceal a matter, but it's a glory of kings to like search out that matter. And that's not kings as in like, like King Charlie. It's more as human beings. Like, the glory for you is to really do that digging, to study the word and to think about and allow those beliefs, because there are lots of limiting beliefs that come up when you're raised in an environment where you are racially abused every single day and you are made to feel like you're not welcome and you do not fit in. So there's lots of limiting beliefs that come out as a result of that. Same with, coming from a family that's separated. You've got feelings of rejection that impact self-worth. So when you start to, at least through my journey in that relationship and developing that relationship with Christ that is unique to me, then you start to do that glory of unearthing and seeing what comes up and checking, actually, is this scriptural or is this something that I've taken on from the world, and unsubscribing if it's not scriptural and following, and replacing that by following what is scriptural, then that starts to really give you that internal, at least for me.
So what
Giving
advice
that
would,
internal
on
validation.
reflection then, what advice would you share with others who may not have that spiritual foundation even about finding their own sense of value if they do feel different, if they didn't fit? And I remember that not quite fitting in
Yeah.
because I was doing well at school and a lot of my peers weren't, and I was the only black
Yeah.
girl in English on top sets and all of that, and trying to speak Jamaican when my parents weren't even Jamaican just to fit in, so I weren't going to get bullied by the girls that were really cool.
Exactly,
all of that,
but you do it though.
all that
You do
journey,
it,
yeah,
though.
putting
You
the
do
long
it.
cardigan to flick hair like the white friends.
Yeah.
All of that kind of stuff.
You do it.
What would you be saying to your younger self or to people listening that do feel different and have a sense of difference about finding their own value in the world?
I think my first thing that I would say, and I say it to little Arit all the time, that's what I call, my little Arit, the younger version of myself, is that, you are enough. As you are enough. And what if you woke up tomorrow feeling like you were enough? What would that look and feel like to you? How differently would you be moving? How would you be speaking? How would you show up in spaces? What would you be doing? And asking those questions, not as in just, ask a question, but actually write down what comes up. Because what comes up is that, as I was saying, like that's the glory that you're receiving from doing that digging, from searching, from asking, okay, so what comes up? Oh, I would be doing this. Don't think about, but I'm not doing this. I'm so far away from doing this. I could never do this. Nobody in my family's ever done this. It's not about that. Just let's see what comes up. I mean, what comes up is like, how does that make you feel? Yeah, be really honest because I always think that we inherently, I think learning who you are to me anyway, is a lifelong journey because it changes through different seasons in your life, right? Who I was in my 20s is not who I am today. Who I was as a young mum is not who I am as a mother of an adult. Do you know what I mean? So you're constantly changing. So that learning and being comfortable with knowing that, and each season is a different version of myself, and getting excited about that comes from that. Is the question that I ask myself all the time, is like, if you were doing no questions, if, there were no judgments, no nothing, and you were to wake up tomorrow doing something that you really enjoyed, what would it be? 9 times out of 10, it's what I'm doing now, but maybe on a more expansive level. But equally so, when it came to moving on from DiVA, I knew I didn't want to do it. My question was not this. that was the answer.
Was that an internal thing? Like, I've done it now.
Like, not this. And then it was like, okay, so what would you like to be doing? Do you know? And then sometimes I'm like, I'm not sure. Then what do you not want to be doing? And then I can write a whole load of things that I don't want to be doing. So it's that part of digging, that part of questioning and being honest and not being worried about the provision or who's going to do this or I can't do this, I haven't got this, or none of those limiting beliefs. Because if we're talking about faith in its truest form, it's like you're believing in things that you've not seen, right? So if that is faith in its purest, then you can't really question what comes up just because you haven't seen it, right? You're believing in things that I've not seen. And I always go back, like Genesis is one of my favorite books in the Bible because I love reading particularly the first parts of creation, and God created everything after its own kind, right? So whether it's the birds in the air, the fish in the sea, the wild beasts, they were planted, they were seeded, and they were designed to repeat after their own kind. And then it came to us as humans. He created us, and we are the only thing that he breathed life into. So when you're breathing life into me, you're telling me that I'm created after my own kind, which is the source, the creator. And therefore, when things come up, and so before the foundation of the earth was ever formed, that I was designed. I was in his mind. I was in his mind's eye, right? So I'm like, okay, so these things that come up, let's just pray about them. Let me just, okay, so this is what's being revealed to me. And when I'm praying, I always say, oh, Daddy, is this what I'm supposed to be doing?
Oh, Daddy.
Because I have to, but this is why you have to have a personal relationship with God, right? Because I tried on lots of versions of what God looked like, depending on which pastor was on the pulpit. And he, and I'd be like, oh, that kind of, I don't know that kind of God, but you have you find
your own.
Yeah, a pastor of ours, I used to serve in the ushering department in my church, and the head of the ushering, his name is Tucky, and I will remember him for the rest of my life. And he used to always say this thing. He used to say many things that have stayed with me, but he always used to say, "No God for yourself, no God for yourself, no God for yourself," was his one thing about whatever you heard on the pulpit, come out of the pulpit, he would go into the word and know God for yourself. And so for me, so when I say now, I'd be like, "Oh, Daddy, is this," because that's the relationship. That's how I know you as my father. So that's how I address you. And you know who I am. You know what I am thinking. So I'm like, I don't have time to be doing all of the theatrics, because you just say, "Come as you are." So I come as I am. And I say, "This is what's come up for me. Which part of this is flesh? Which part of this is spirit? If any of it is flesh," especially at this point in my life, I'm like, just like, take it away, because I only want to be doing what's aligned. So then you start to think differently.
Financial wisdom isn't gained by accident. Financial security is not reserved for the privileged few. Getting your money right requires intentionality, practical resources, and education. That's why the Pentecostal Community Bank offers a wide variety of financial literacy workshops, courses, and support to help you get your finances back on track. Find out more by visiting pcbank.co.uk. It's clear from your experience that you now have a very strong sense of who you are and your own personal sense of value. For people listening, how would you ask them or get them to reflect on knowing their worth? For example, if you're going for a job or you are being employed, how do you work out what your value is on a materialistic level?
You don't look at it as a materialistic level, because I think that is looking at it from an external perspective. Like, I think that knowing your worth starts internally, right? Because when you tie it to a job, you tie it to a particular outcome. When that outcome's gone, as does your value, right? So, you have a set of skills so my thing is that I will never go hungry, right? Because I know that I have enough skills, I have enough experience, and I am creative by definition, in that I repeat after my own kind. So I am creative, and I have been given the power to get wealth, and nothing that I have should be new to me. In the sense, what comes to me should not be new to me, because I was created before the foundation of the earth was formed. So everything is there already. I'm just like, as you go through, you tap tap obviously, kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? Not as frivolous as that, but like, I'm like aligned. If you're in alignment, then the provision comes, right? So I don't hitch myself to the external outcome. So for example, like, I knew that I wanted to end my first business, DiVA, for a long time mentally, but I was struggling to actually activate that decision, right? To go out there and say it's done, but internally I knew it was done. And the reason why was because a lot of my identity was wrapped up in the business. And so when it ended, I thought, okay, so what? People knew me. Oh, Arit from DiVA. That's how I was known.
Well, I'm guilty of that as charged, because I did the same in a big corporation that I worked for. As soon as I left, I felt like I have no identity now. I have to start again. I have no value. So all that madness in my head.
Exactly, because you've intertwined your identity with the vehicle, right?
But a lot of us do that.
Of course we do. And I was listening to Sarah Jakes Roberts. I can't even remember whether it was a podcast, whether it was a sermon, whatever. I was just listening to her. I was on a walk, and I'll never forget it. And she said, don't attach your purpose and your skills to a vehicle. Like, they should be flowing in whatever form they take. And that gave me the release to let go, because I thought, okay, so I'm attaching everything that God has in store for me to this one thing. And now I'm even blocking my own blessing. I'm blocking what's coming, because I've focused on it being through this one thing. And so I let it go. And when I let it go, I felt a sense of release. And then I let it go. And then I found myself in what I can only describe as a wilderness. Because I'm like, oh, yeah, it was really great at the time for everyone to, and that's why I wanted for people to think, oh, apprenticeship's creative, think about DiVA. And they did. They thought, Arit from DiVA. And I was like, perfect. But now that's how people saw me. And so that wilderness, I guess, has been very much about, okay, so now you have time to ask yourself those questions, because I still have worth whether that business is going or not. It doesn't change the skills that I have, the experience that I have. I'm certainly not starting from scratch. I'm starting with so much more experience. So I think as women, we often, whether you're made redundant or business sense, whatever the end is, we tend to go all the way back down to the beginning, to before we ever started. Do you know what I mean? And think we have to start there. It's like, no, this is not snakes and ladders. You're still here. You just roll the dice again and you move counters forward. And so I'm like, okay, what does that next move look like? Because I'm actually free. I unpicked my identity from that vehicle, if you want. And okay, so I'm free. So I wouldn't say go in there, back to your question, as in thinking materially, think about your skills, think about your experience. And I always used to say to people when I'm coaching them about jobs and careers is that the company you're not gate crashing the door to like get an interview, right? When a company advertises for a job, their business is in pain, right? And this job, this opportunity is designed to release the pressure. And you applied, no one put a gun to your head, you thought, yeah, my skills match up. And I, on the receiving end, as a hiring manager, read it and was impressed and thought, yes, these skills look really good. So I invited you to come. Right. So you didn't, so many people go into interviews like, with a humility, please, Ola, give me a job, give me a job. And it's so off-putting. Now, what you want to come in now is know that actually I've got a lot of skills. They invited me for this interview, so they clearly see that I can be a solution to their problem, right? So your worth is in that. I'm a solution to your problem. Now I want to know whether or not me kind of partnering with you, because I'm only partnering with you for a set period of time. I'm not moving in. I am going to,
it's almost contractual.
I am loaning my skills to you. Like I say to leaders, their talent is only ever on loan to you. It's not the businesses to keep. They own it. So you own your talent, and you're about to sit down and interview me to see if I am worthy as an employer for you to now trade some of your time for skills. That's what you're doing. And so your questions then become different. Do you know, I want to know if I'm thinking, right, in the next year or 2 years or 5 or 10 years, depending on how long you think, I want to be able to do A, B, C, D, and E. These are the skills I need to be able to develop. I want to spend maybe about 18 months in this role or 12 months, whatever your period is. Then I'm interviewing you to make sure that one, I get the development so I can build the skills that I want. I want to know about the culture because I don't want you stressing me out so that when I come home, I'm burnt out and I can't think about, the vision and the long game. I'm spending more time trying to unwind from this toxic environment. That takes away my energy. I don't want to be doing that. I want to know about the role itself. I want to know about the team. I want to know about you as my leader and manager. How do you manage? Do you know, are you a micromanager? Because I don't like to be micromanaged. We're going to fall out. So it's a whole other different conversation because you invited me. Do you see what I mean? And I'm now thinking that, okay, is this a right kind of partnership for me? Is this organization, this role going to help me realize my potential? That's it. Is it going to make the boat go faster?
This is such valuable words of wisdom that you're sharing with us, and that's for your natural ability to coach. And I was just thinking, as you were talking about the investment that we make in ourselves to learn, because what you're saying is so much valuable, but we put on the outside world so much value on other things, whether it be the car, the designer home, blah, blah, blah. Not many of us invest in ourselves, put the money into getting coaching or meeting someone like you who just sitting here. I think we've learned so much already about a different attitude when you go in, when you're selling your skills. How do you feel about it? Do you think that we do enough self-investing as opposed to investing in things?
No. is my want. No.
I thought that might be your answer.
No, I think because...
And why
but then
not?
it comes to value, right? But I also think it's how you're raised. Because if you're, in general, as I was saying earlier, like you get it, you go to school, you get... for many, you go to university and then you go out, you get a job and then you stay in the job and then the job is to buy the house and yada, yada, yada. So, and the economy runs on people being employed. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with being employed. Not everybody can be running their own thing. That's not what I'm saying. But ultimately, the mindset is that you control my income. My income is fixed based on what you are going to pay me. And you hear about people, oh, I'm doing all this work and then the bosses are getting fat off all of my work, all of that. So it's very much this, I have no agency. And so when you have that as your mindset, that I'm just going in to do a job, then you then fix your income, you fix your ability, and you're waiting for me, therefore, to do the investment. Like, as an employer, the most attractive employees to me, the most valuable ones, the ones that I would then go above and beyond to pay, and leaders will go above and beyond to keep on their business, are those that actually I'll invest in myself because I'm raising my stock. My skills, your skills, especially in this economy where you have AI coming into the workplace, your skills are the most, the valuable currency that you hold. And it is your responsibility to invest in them. It's your employer can help.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong.
Or you can ask them to put you on a development course.
Put you onto a development course. Some may not. But there are so many free resources now, Brenda, that you can access on YouTube, that you can access on any of these social media platforms.
I'm forever subscribing to personal development courses.
Do you know what I mean?
I'm addicted almost.
There's no reason why, even if you had little in terms of coinage, there is so much available online to get you started, to take you to a point where, like, okay, I've increased my income and now I can start to invest. But if you can afford to go and buy yourself a ticket to go and say, I don't know, Beyonce, but you won't put yourself on a course that for half of the price, then you're already telling me that you're more interested in investing in Beyonce's vision than you are your own. So it's like, which one is it? She don't need your coins, but your future does. So it's about actually that value is like, do I value myself? And do I trust myself to then deliver a return on that investment? Then yeah, let me invest.
So how do you see learning, coaching and development as a form of stewardship? Right? Do you see it as a form of stewardship as opposed to rather than an indulgence?
It's not an indulgence. Oh my gosh, no, because the word says your gifts will make way for you. Like, how are they going to make way for me if I'm not even refining them? If I'm not even utilizing them? Like, you can say these scriptures, but if you're not actually investing in refining, in developing, then don't complain when your income level doesn't rise.
So let's talk about scarcity mindset. Do you think that's another thing that you observe that may be a difficulty for some people?
Yeah,
that we kind
sure.
of, I guess we does that kind of hark back to how we value ourselves?
I think we do. We do. Many people do have a scarcity mindset, and we all have, limiting beliefs around money. Well, most of us have limiting beliefs around money, and it can stem from your household. It starts at your household. So if you were all like, I grew up with my nana, and she'd often run out of money, and we'd hear debt collectors at the front door. So I knew that being in debt was bad, and if you did, and you could run out of money, and if you run out of money, then there was a fear attached to that. Right. So then when you had it, you didn't want to release it because you're like, I release it, I could be broke and then I'm not going to have any money. And so when I started my business, I was nervous about taking on debt because that was all associated with, oh my gosh, people will come and then I can't afford to pay. So if I can't buy for it in cash, then I'm not having it. Do you know? But there is good debt. There is debt that you can use to leverage to grow your business. And so and then that opens up your opportunities further and an opportunity for your business to go beyond what it is for you now. So I think you do have to check your money mindset as well. And it can be very hard to see. I was having this conversation with my friend just a couple of days ago. I asked her the question, like, what's the maximum of income that you imagine yourself ever earning? And she put a figure on that. And then added a lot of fluff around. Yeah, it will be in this job, and I can see myself earning it because I would be able to do these sales. And, she gave the rationale behind that question. And for me, that was really interesting. So I was like, so you see your income only ever coming from this particular source of revenue, and it was fixed. And so, and for me, I don't have a cap, because I think if you're thinking about supply, God is a supplier of all of my needs. My job is like, it's about how that flows through you to fulfill his will and purpose on earth, right? So I don't have a cap. I can't cap what he wants to do through me. And also, I think it's not my money. It's his money, because he supplies my needs. So therefore, if that direct provision comes from him, and he is a supplier, it's his money. So I'm a tither. I will give my tithe. If he lays it on my heart to bless someone, sometimes I have to pray fast. Bro, are you doing this? But then I'm like reminded it's actually not your money. Do you know what I mean? So then I will let it go, and I can guarantee something will happen where actually I need something and I have an overflow as a result of that. So now I don't even do the fight. Do you know what I mean? Because it's like we've been here too many times before.
But all your decisions and actions is rooted in a really strong sense of faith, and I can see that. It's not unique, but it's a really powerful sense of faith. But I think
you have to say, because I don't want people to say that and think that like, oh, I arrived here today. I didn't. But I did this when I was a single mom and had no money. Right. So when I was on benefits, I would tithe 10% of my benefit.
Right.
Because I was grateful that I had a flow of income, because I have relatives who don't have that flow of income. So I'm grateful for what I have. So you don't despise small beginnings. And so when you are practicing that loop, when you have small, then when you get more, don't get me twisted. When I had to tithe my income from my business, I'm not saying that I didn't think, but I was like, yeah, but you have 10%. That's 10%. That's all. So think about what you have left. So if you can tithe that at 10%, then it changes your level, it changes your mindset. So it raises your aspirations,
it's an
and
energy
it puts
thing.
your energy. Yeah, it shifts your energy, because it's very hard for you to imagine spending more than you've ever had. So if you see £1,000 come in your bank account every month, it's very hard to then think, oh, I could never give £1,000 to someone. But if you have 10, then giving 1,000 doesn't, it hits you differently. Do you get what I mean? So I think what our pastor used to talk to us many years ago is that go and place yourself in rooms where you are mixing with people who have the life, or in this might be doing the job or having the business that you aspire to. Put yourself in those rooms, and then not only observing how people are talking and whatnot, but also observe what comes up for you. Because sometimes what comes up for you can be some of those limiting beliefs. It's like, oh my gosh, they're all looking at me like I don't belong here. So my next question, sometimes I'll note them down or remember them, whichever one that stays in my mind the most. And I'm like, is this who God says I am? If it is, then let's pray on that. And if it's not, then let's unfollow. So it's about put yourself, when you have nothing to lose, put yourself in those places. Go to the restaurant that you really think, oh, I have no business to go in there. I'd really love to go to that. Take yourself to that restaurant. And even if all you can buy in that moment is a cappuccino, buy your cappuccino, take time drinking your cappuccino, enjoy your cappuccino, but notice what comes up for you. Because unless you can really start to reframe those thoughts and replace them with who God says you are, then you will always limit what he can bring into your life.
It feels like a lot of this is based on a huge mindset shift. What practical advice would you be giving people sitting there thinking, God, I love what she's saying, but I don't think like that. My mind doesn't work like that. And, I only earn 25 grand a year or whatever. Or, I can only tithe so much, or I can only give so much because I don't have that mindset.
Stop dumbing down what you can only do. Like, take out the word only. The fact is, you earn £25,000 a year. Be grateful that you earn £25,000 a year. Be grateful every month when your direct debits are going out to cover your gas, your electric, your rent, or your mortgage, or whatever it is, because it's letting you know that God has provided a roof over my head. I live in a country where, yes, there's gas and electric. Now, we can talk about how expensive it is when companies should be getting the profits out, but you have gas and electric. Be grateful for the fact that, yes, I have managed to pay the school fees or whatever it is. Be grateful for that. So don't despise those small beginnings, and don't discount it with words like, oh, I've only got, oh, I've only done. I have. And I am thankful that I have. Because when somebody's really thankful to you, you want to be around them. You want to give them more. You're like, oh, I love being in her presence. Here she is again with that thank you. But I always feel like when I'm not grateful, I'm like being disrespectful. Do you know what I mean? Like, and also what you're praying about. You can't pray for big things and then be like, oh, but I've only got. Because like, you're double-minded. And a double-minded person gets nothing.
You love scripture. Let me show this one at you and you can bounce off it. Psalm 21.
I do love scripture. I'm not even going to lie. I love my Bible.
I know what to get you for your next birthday.
I'm not even going to lie. I really do. I love reading my Bible.
Well, let me give you Psalm 24:1 says the earth is the Lord's and everything in it. So what does it practically mean to steward money rather than possess it, in your opinion?
To me, it's to steward is like, okay, so it's going back to that what we were talking about earlier, right? About and I encourage everyone to do this, is spend some time asking yourself, if I woke up tomorrow and I was doing what I loved, right? Like, what would I be doing? What would my living my best life look like for real, right? And then you can start to pick from that. You'll start to see some streams through that. But that stewardship, when you bring it up and you ask the question, like, as I was saying, you put it before whatever you call God. I call him Daddy. You put him before, like, and you meditate on that. Again, you will see other things rise. You will see that, yes, you might want this, I don't know, like, I love to travel, I love to do those kind of things, because freedom and independence and curiosity are my core values, are part of my values. So you'll find that there's an alignment in terms of the work you want to do and the things that bring you joy. Going back to what I said earlier about how, when you ask that question, if I woke up tomorrow in my dream job, doing what I enjoyed, or my dream career, my dream life, however you want to phrase it, see what comes up. Then offer that up again to God in prayer. Like, is this which part of this is flesh? Which part of this is you? And then you keep asking, you keep seeking, going back to, I think it's Proverbs 25:2. You keep going back to that scripture. So you're unearthing, because it's the glory of God to conceal and it's the glory of you to, like, search and understand, right? And so when that comes up, you know that what comes through you is for that vision. Because if it's in alignment with his will, he will provide the provision. Right. So when that comes, your job is to steward that. So if you say it's a blessing to be a blessing, I want to be a blessing. And then he lays it on your heart to go bless Brenda with something or other. And you're like, but I was going to buy this with that. You're a steward. You asked me to make you a blessing. And now I'm saying, go bless her. And now we're having this whole debate over whether they should be blessed. Just release it. Because when you give, it's given to you, pressed down, rolling over. You can't outgive God.
So where do you think believers most struggle? Is it believing that God will be the provider, or taking responsibility, knowing that they do have a responsibility?
I think it goes back to we are in this world, but we're not of it. I think sometimes we become of the world. So we're one foot in church on Sunday, and then we're other foot in the world Monday through to Saturday. And you can't do both. So I think you get trapped. And then you think, oh, well, I've been praying for these things and then they haven't happened. And then you get despondent. And it's like, yes, but are you are your words lining up with your prayer. Do you know? Because if you're praying, I want to be a blessing, but then you're acting as if you're discounting the blessings that I'm giving you. Like you're saying, oh, I've only got 25,000 a year. I've only got this. I can only tithe this. Then you're not acting like a blessing. You're not talking like a blesser. So it's like, listen to, I think it's Joel Osteen that said, if you want to know where your future is heading, listen to the words that are coming out of your mouth. So if they're not aligning, then, you know, God is very clear. Like, just ask me. He said, ask and I will give you nations as a present and continents as a prize. And you're coming asking for 199 for whatever. Do you know what I mean? So that's what you have access to. And so, but I also, you know, think that this comes from being in the Word, and it's not reading the Word. I think you can read the Word, and I've approached the Bible in so many different ways since I gave my life to Christ, and that's over 20 years ago now. Is that I've done let's read the Bible in a year, and ask me what I remember, nothing, because I was just on a schedule. And I was reading in King James Version. I didn't understand nothing. I've done just read a Proverbs a day. That met me sometimes when I, you know, in terms of time, that I'd just pray, reveal something to me as I'm going through the scriptures. Sometimes I've done read a psalm every day. But as I've grown more in faith, then I can read a scripture and stay on that scripture for 2 to 3 months. I can be in a book. You. So I think study the Bible. Like, don't necessarily worry so much about, I've only read one chapter this month. It's like, have you been in that chapter? Have you dug deep in that chapter? Like I spent the beginning of this year, I must have spent about 3-4 months in the book of Haggai this year.
Wow.
Just reading. And if I tell you, Brenda, I learned so much about seasons, because as we were talking a little bit earlier about wilderness and feeling like, oh, what's this next chapter going to look like? And knowing that in all of that I have read, that God always saves the best to last. Like, people sometimes later in what you would define in worldly terms, their careers would be, you know, Moses was late in his 40s. You've got menopausal women having babies. Like, he doesn't stick to...
Colonel Sanders in Kentucky was he 60 or 80?
Yeah, so later in life. So I'm like, okay, so I've got loads left to do, but I don't want to get caught up in how the world defines the season of my life. I need to go back to the source. And so I was in the book of Haggai, and that shifted my mindset and aligned me in the right place that I need to be right now. And so I didn't worry about the fact that, I'm still in chapter 1. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't matter, because that's not the point. It's the about you and your relationship with God. Because when you build that relationship for yourself on your terms, on his terms, you just come as you are and say, for me, it's like, Daddy, what are we learning about today? Reveal who you want me to be in this season. And you can guarantee. And I always say, speak in a language that I understand. So I know it's from you and I'm not getting distracted by anything else. He will meet you in people, in the word. And that's where it starts. And then over time, you start to build and your mindset starts to change. And then you'll reach another season and then you'll be in another wilderness. And it's like, okay, we're going back deeper in. And it's cyclical. So I don't want people to think, I'm not where she is. No, because this is like, as long as I have been a believer, and there's been times when I've been a believer and I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't read my Bible for like the last month or whatever in the way that I used to, then that's all right. But I might be listening to the word. Do you know, I might be on a walk and I've got a message playing. So however you get the word in you, you've always got...
it's very personal, isn't it?
It's very, very personal, but I can guarantee he will meet you where you're at. So, I don't want people to leave and think that there's no hope. It's like, actually, if you're listening, you're tuning in, then this is your minute of, you know, your moment to stop and think, actually, let me answer that question that she threw out a little bit earlier and see what comes up. That might be all you do.
Let me assure you, you've been saying that's not been negative. I don't think people will leave here with no hope. But before, let me ask you.
No, I mean, like, they leave there and thinking, oh no, because some people can receive information and then limiting beliefs kick in, and that lack of self-worth kicks in, and you think, oh, I'm never going to be like that. You should not be like me, please. There's only one me, but never like, oh yeah, that's all right for this person. It's not going to work for me.
Trap.
But even if that is what you're thinking, is that of God? Bring that up. Is that, why? Get curious about that. Oh, okay. Why did I think that? What was about what you said that I felt that this was not going to be about me? And if that thought were not true, how would I feel? Do you know? And then you think, oh, actually, and notice how your body feels, because your body keeps the score. Do you know what I mean? You can forget things, you can think you've moved through things cognitively, but somatically, your nervous system can kick in.
That's what intuition's all about, isn't it?
Before it goes before. And even then, it's like, oh, wow, okay, so I tensed up, I got nervous, I got a bit defensive. What was it about? What was it about what I said that triggered that response? Because that's you, the glory of kings. That's you kind of, okay, I'm digging for some gold here. I'm about to pull something up that's going to unplug, and that I'm not going to be the blocker to God's progress in my life. So that's the way that I look at it.
That's excellent. Now, before we conclude, I want to ask you, what encouragement would you give to someone standing on the edge of, say, an investment, be it their learning, their growth, their purpose, their business?
Standing on the edge, how are they feeling when they're on the edge? Depends on how they're feeling. If they're feeling excited, I'm like, yes, I'm excited for you. If they're feeling apprehensive, I again be like, question, what's going on for you? How are you feeling? What's going, if you knew everything was going to be okay, would you still jump? And if the answer is yes, then jump. Do it. And if you knew that even if something went wrong, that I would be okay, then jump, is what I would say. Because sometimes, and it's natural because how we're wired, when change is on the horizon, our body is like survival mode. No, we don't do new things. We're comfortable here right now. So no, when you do that, everything's going to go wrong. You're going to lose everything. And then where will you be? How about that? Whereas actually in reality, if you jump, either you'll land on something soft or you'll give him wings to fly. So if that's your outcome, just take the jump. You'll be all right.
Before I let you go, I must ask, if people are wanting to know more, find out more, or connect with you in terms of your work, where can they find you, and how? And what will you be doing that they can get involved in?
They can find me on LinkedIn. They can find me on Instagram. Just use my name. You can find me on YouTube. Use my name. And in terms of, again, my website, everything is my name.
It makes it easier.
And yeah, so I run an annual leadership event on it's the 12th of November this year.
Which is absolutely brilliant.
Yes,
I've been on it. It was
have.
Groundbreaking and so revelatory in so many ways. I still think about it.
Yeah, thank you. So that one sold out this year, which because I didn't attach myself to the outcome. Last year I struggled because I attached myself to the outcome. This year I was like, nah, God, if you're telling me to do this again, you need to deal with who comes through the door.
I would highly recommend you do it.
Yeah.
It is transformative.
Yeah, so I'm doing that again, and I have, and I really want to double the numbers this year. I just got laid it on my heart to open it up because I wanted to keep it intimate, but we're going to go a little bit more. So that, and I run, different workshops around careers development, leadership development, and do a lot of in-house leadership and management training, definitely around, kind of unpicking those limits and beliefs.
I wish you luck with it all, and I thank you for sharing your blessings with us for this really rich and thought-provoking conversation.
Thank you.
Bless you.
Thank you.
I think it's fair to say that Arit has reminded us that faith and finance are deeply connected, not just in what we give or earn, but in how we think, trust and steward what God places in our hands. If anyone's listening and today's episode resonates with you and you feel challenged, we invite you to reflect on not just how you spend money, but how you invest in the person you are becoming. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Faith and Finance. If anything resonates with you, please let us know and like and subscribe as we continue to explore faith, finance and purpose. Until the next time, God bless.